Hey, welcome back to The Voice Within. School is starting on Tuesday and I'm super excited. It was very long summer, if I'm honest. After we came back from Bosnia to Bahrain, it stretched my capacity to maximum because we are constantly indoor. Whoever is in the Middle East, you know what I'm talking about. Humidity is very high, it's very hot, we cannot be outdoor. And when it's like that, I feel I become more lazy. Even if I want to go out, even if I want to do something, I have to push myself intentionally. But it's coming to an end. They're predicting by end of September the weather will get better. New season is coming, new chapter is coming, and new podcast episode is coming. So today I want to have a real conversation with you about real problems, real things that we're facing in our life, about the things which we are trying to overcome and satisfy everybody. Today I want to talk to you about how to stop feeling guilty for setting boundaries with the family. Honestly, I can talk about this topic for days, taking in consideration that I am Bosnian, my husband is Bahraini, a lot of cultural differences, a lot of the things which are acceptable and normal in my culture or not acceptable and normal in my culture, in his culture are completely okay. Taking in consideration that I was cabin crew for the almost 5 years before I got married, that I was already living in the Middle East, having contact with another nationalities. Even when we got married, I had huge level of cultural awareness and huge level of understanding that common sense for me is not necessarily common sense for another person. So for me to set boundaries with the family, it doesn't just come, I want to set boundaries, this is not okay for me. It comes with that huge level of cultural awareness that some of the things which are not acceptable for me are acceptable for others. And that sensitivity to understand that often it's not about implementing the boundary, often it's about curiosity and understanding each other and accepting each other in our all fullness and in everything what our culture brings to us. And saying that, I learned people often act towards us based on their own experience, based on their own culture, based on what is acceptable for them and what is not acceptable for them. But we often take it very personally, thinking that their behavior is directly towards us, while actually people behave in the way they know, not necessarily directly towards us. So this huge cultural awareness, blended family, gave me so much understanding for each other, so much acceptance, and gave me such a full blend even in my home where everything is accepted, everything is cherished. Both of the cultures, they are living together. Both of the cultures are loved and cherished equally. So before we go into how to set boundaries with the family, I think that we need to address guilt. Because we often feel guilty when we are setting boundaries, and we don't setting them because we feel guilty. Guilt is the emotion that we feel when we believe that we did something wrong. When we steal, when we did something to somebody, when we lied. This is when we're supposed to feel guilty. So in this case, it's completely understandable why we cannot talk about how to set boundaries before we address the core emotion which is stopping us from setting the boundaries in the first place, and that is guilt. So we feel that something is wrong in the moment. We feel that somebody crossed our boundaries. Then we set boundaries and we feel guilty about it as if we did something wrong. So we could say that we feel guilty for protecting our intuition, for protecting what is correct for us, for protecting what we feel deep inside people should do or not do in our presence. So if we think a little bit about it, we can ask ourselves, is saying no to something that is hurting us really something to feel guilty about? If somebody sits across you and start poking you with a pen and you tell them no, stop it, and they do it again, and you tell them no, stop it, and they do it again, no, stop it, then you start shout to make them stop. You wouldn't feel guilty in that moment because they are breaching your personal space, attacking you, crossing your boundaries. But in the case of the family, we are trained to measure our worth by how comfortable others feel around us. Some of the previous podcast episodes I was talking about being the good girl, being the acceptable one, being the loved one. We are trained, certified to make sure that everybody around us are comfortable. So when we have that imprint in our head, any no to others, it means we are not good anymore. We are not making sure that everybody around us is very comfortable. This is why in the core we are feeling guilty, especially as women. We are taught to keep peace, to manage emotions of others, to be good one by keeping everybody okay, but making everybody okay with us often comes at the cost of us. Making everybody okay with us is us sacrificing ourselves. So we don't want to breach that hidden contract of us being the good one, being acceptable one, being the loved one, when we are pushed to the edge to set the boundaries, especially in motherhood, because now it's not just about us. When we are not mothers, we can easily say to our family members, don't do that, or actually they are not even breaching that much our boundaries because it's just us. They are used to it, to how to behave with us. But when we become mothers, there is another human being involved in that relationship, in that dynamic. And we, like mothers, we feel that we need to protect our children. So it's coming very hard for us to set the boundaries, because setting the boundaries with a family, in motherhood specifically, or in any part of our life, it means breaching that hidden contract of being the good one. If I say no, will they still love me? Will I still belong? These are the lingering thoughts which are in back of our head. So to don't test, will I belong or will I be rejected if I set boundaries, we don't say them at all. Or when we tell them, when we are pushed to the edge, it comes with a lot of guilt. So our body memorized that last time when we set the boundaries, there was rejection, the people reacted, we felt guilty. So the next time when we are called in position to set the boundaries, again, we are literally bracing. We don't want to do it. We don't want to have that emotions again, that look on another people when we set boundaries. We're just trying to avoid that as much as possible. But then we are trading off. We are trading our own truth, and the byproduct of that is that feeling of I betrayed myself. I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't say what I wanted to say in the moment because I was protecting other people and protecting myself from feeling guilty to stand up for myself. So based on all of this, we need to ask ourselves, should I feel guilty for standing up for myself? Should I feel guilty? Is there anything to feel guilty about if somebody crossed my boundary and I set the boundary? So like I said, before we can even talk about how to set boundaries, we have to first understand the guilt. Because once we understand the guilt, once we remove guilt from the whole picture, to set boundaries, it comes easier. And what often happens is that we are waiting for the guilt to disappear so we can set boundaries. Once I don't have that emotion of guilt, once I feel okay to set boundaries, then I'm gonna set it. Until then, I will just keep quiet because I cannot bear to feel guilty again. But that trade-off comes at the cost of us. We are not avoiding actually guilt in the moment. We are avoiding discomfort of choosing ourselves. And this is very heartbreaking when you realize it. The first time I realized it, I was really devastated, thinking, I feel guilty because I choose myself. I feel guilty because I'm saying something which is important to me and I'm requiring and asking people to respect it. None of the behavior we do is just behavior on the surface. There is always deep inside, under it, the reason we do it or we don't do it, what we are protecting, what we are avoiding. We are wired like humans to seek good emotions, emotion which gives us pleasure, and to avoid uncomfortable emotions. So each one of our behavior is always going back and forth between this. Avoid uncomfortable emotion, seek good emotions. Yes, in the moment we feel good when we don't set boundaries. We avoid rejection from the people, we avoid maybe argument, and we feel okay, like, oh, I'm so good, I was patient today with my family, I didn't tell them nothing. But it stays in us, that self-betrayal stays in us. And what is even more devastating, that this kind of things piles up. And then comes resentment. One of my previous podcast episodes, I was talking about how the resentment is built. When every time we swallow something, then we get angry with the people for doing the things that we never even told them not to do in the first place. And if we are honest, we think we are angry with them, but we are angry at ourselves for not choosing ourselves. So now when we have understanding of guilt, let's talk about boundaries, because we often have wrong relationship with the word boundaries. When we say boundaries, we often feel like it's some kind of rejection. It's some kind of rudeness towards the people. Let's redefine what boundaries even mean. If we say no to somebody, that doesn't mean I am rejecting you personally. It just means I don't like when you do that. I am choosing myself now. I choose to speak about what matters to me. We often see no like being cruel, being rude. But if we look closer, we will see that boundaries are just clarity. We become clear with each other what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. There is no rudeness in that as long as the boundaries are set with respect and lovingly, and we're going to talk about it later. And the most important thing about boundaries is that we have to have understanding that we are not responsible for how other people feel about our truth, about what we feel, about our boundary. We are only responsible in way we express it, in our intention. Are we intentionally trying to hurt, minimize another person, or we are just trying to express our truth? It would be like you go and you buy new shoes and you love them and they are very comfortable, and somebody comes to you and tells you, I don't like those shoes, and you change those shoes because somebody else doesn't agree with your liking. We feel responsible when other people don't like what we like or what we expect or what we wish. We want to make sure that nobody sees us like a bad one, that nobody is uncomfortable with us, that nobody is angry with us or rejecting us. And the only way we can actually do that, if we are just focusing on other people, is to continuously betray ourselves, to continuously abandon ourselves. If we are continuously focusing on other people instead of ourselves, we will feel that feeling of betrayal. On another side, the only way we can stop that feeling of self-betrayal is when we start taking ourselves in consideration. And I'm completely against that mainstream idea of I protect myself, I protect my peace. It's not realistic in the real life. We are living with other people. We care about other people. We love other people. We love our family. We want to have good relationship with them, but not at the cost of ourselves. We want to be respected, but at the same time, we want to respect them. So saying I protect my peace, I just think about myself now, it's not realistic in the life. What I found more realistic is dignity. It's what I can do in this moment that I will sleep peacefully tonight. How can I express my truth without trying to hurt another person, having the best intentions, lovingly setting boundaries to protect relationship, but at the same time to don't betray myself. And it's true. Even when we set boundaries the most lovingly we can, other people will sometimes take our no like rejection, because they don't have this understanding about guilt and boundaries that you are listening now. Their awareness is less than yours, and we always have to take that in consideration when we are in the interaction with other people. We have to understand that what we know, how much we're building ourselves, how much we are growing and improving, the other people are not on that level. It's like you imagine building, and each person in your life is on the certain floor, on the certain level, and maybe you are on 20 level of the building of 50 levels, and somebody from your family is on the third level. You cannot expect from them same awareness about the things that you have, because you grew, you dedicated time to improve yourself, you're listening this podcast, you're trying to be better to yourself and better to other person. So no matter how much caringly and lovingly you set the boundaries with some people, they will still feel rejected because they don't have awareness about about these things. And you are not responsible for other people's emotional reactions. You are only responsible for your intention and your delivery, because your intention and your delivery will free you from guilt. What does that mean? I set boundaries having understanding about your awareness. I set boundaries lovingly, the best way I can, trying to protect our relationship, not trying to hurt you intentionally. I did all I could to protect this relationship, but not at the cost of myself. And what you feel after that, it's not my responsibility anymore. And it's completely understandable that we don't know how to set boundaries, because nobody teaches. In many cultures, setting boundaries is rude. Choosing yourself is rude. It's something which is imprinted in us. And in order for us to get free from that guilt and to set them lovingly, we have to completely change our relationship with boundaries, what they even mean in the first place. Most of us, we were only shown two ways of expressing pain or expressing boundaries: silence or explosion. So either we do passive-aggressive thing, maybe some of your family members did it. In my family, I had family members who were using silence to punish me, or there was explosion, the huge reaction without introduction, without any kind of preparation. So we learned that setting boundaries, it has to come with some huge emotional reaction where we end up in a fight with the people. We are already anticipating the possible reaction of the people. I'm sure you felt it if you ever paid attention when you're trying to set boundaries with somebody, and then in back of your head you rolling that story. If I say this, then they will say that, and if I say this, maybe they will get angry, but maybe with this, but maybe with that, maybe better I don't say nothing. If we don't address that self-talk with this awareness, that self-talk will always guiding us to abandon ourselves. We always think that boundaries, they have to be cold. They have to be, I'm choosing myself, I don't allow you to do that, and we are done. And it's end of the story. It's like teenagers when they fight. But there is another way. The boundaries, they can be loving and caring if we set them with a good intention. Let's take one example of motherhood. Let's say you have a child and you don't give too much sweets to your child, but your mother constantly is giving endless sweets to your child. So you are getting frustrated if you follow your guilt, if you follow you being the good one. You pile up, you don't say nothing, you try to avoid, you try to hide the sweets. You maybe even try to don't take your kid to your mother that much because you just cannot stand her behavior and you don't know how to stop it without her getting offended. Then you become resentful and maybe you explode. Or you go into silence, into resentfulness, like being completely victimized by your own mother behavior towards your child. So instead of passive aggression, instead of silencing yourself, or instead of exploding on her and fighting with her, instead of saying, don't give him sweets, we don't raise our children like that, blah, 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 getting into the fight, can we try to set good intention and set this boundary lovingly? What if we say over the cup of coffee with your mother and you say, I know you love my child. It makes me happy to see how you are interacting with my child. And I know it makes you happy to see him happy when you give him sweet. But he's still very small and we are really trying to limit sugar for him. Can we find a middle ground? I don't want you to feel restricted like a grandma, but also I don't want to keep fighting with you for how we raise our child. Can we be mature together in this situation? Can you help me to raise my child better? Can you give me your experience in this situation so we overcome it together? When you set boundaries in this way, and in order for this way of setting boundaries to happen, they have to be set immediately, not when you piled up days and days of keeping yourself silent and guilty to say anything. You have to set them the first moment you feel them, when you are calm. This is the only time where you are still calm to be able to don't accuse the person, to don't attack the person, but to talk lovingly with the best intention to protect the relationship with another person, but at the same time to say your boundaries. When you set them with this clarity, with the warmth and maturity, first of all, you will feel proud about yourself. You will preserve the relationship with another person and you stop leaking the guilt. When you set them lovingly, immediately after you feel that your boundaries are crossed, you sometimes even have to plan it. Like, okay, somebody did something, and you stay quiet in the moment. And then you're waiting for the perfect moment when you're gonna sit with that person after the storm pass and talk to them and explain them your point of view, why you want to set boundaries, that your relationship with them is very important to you, but you cannot allow this thing. So you're trying to find middle ground. When you do like this, you stop choosing between being loved and being whole to yourself. And if we are honest, part of the reason we end up feeling guilty or frustrated is because we didn't set the stage clearly from the beginning. We often assume that the family members will know what we allow and what we don't allow, especially when it comes about parenting. But if we are honest, we never actually said it, especially with older family members. They do what they know based on their experience. They do what works for them. They maybe raised kids differently. They maybe raised us differently. We can see it. And they are acting from their own experience. This is what I said on the beginning. The common sense for me is not common sense for another person. So when we don't explain our way clearly and early, we set everyone up for silent crash. They think they are helping and we feel that we are disrespected. But no one ever made it clearly what are the expectations. And if we want to be in womanhood, if we want to be mature, if we want to lead ourselves in our family, we have to be the one who are setting the expectations of the relationship. If we're talking about parenting, our children are building the relationship with our family members. But at the same time, we are, like a woman, like a mother's, the one who are filtering that relationship, the one who are setting the tone of that relationship. And we often feel disrespected with the things our family members are doing, especially towards our kid, because we sometimes think they did it wrong. I had this issue. When I was in victimhood state, I was blaming my parents for everything, and I thought, as long as I do opposite from them, I'm okay. But it took me very long time to see that actually not everything that they did was wrong. There was a lot of good things. In the end, I am here the way I am because of them. So if we take wisdom from our family members, especially the elderly ones, and combine it with what we want to have in our parenting, in our motherhood, we bring such a nice blend. We actually start becoming curious about why our, let's say, parents or grandparents did something the way they did. I often found that in my motherhood. I was judging my parents for doing something with me, but later on, when my child grew and started testing me in the same way, I saw exactly same place where they had to make some difficult decisions, and I often would have to make very similar decision to what my parents did. Once we accept that we are grown women now, once we accept that we can shape our life the way we want, regardless of our family members and our parents and our siblings, that we have right to decide what is acceptable and not acceptable in our life, when we mature, really mature, not by age, by emotional intelligence, we understand that setting boundaries with our family members can be loving, and it doesn't mean we're rejecting them. It just means we are mature, we are growing, and start listening ourselves and what is truth for us. And yes, some boundaries, they must be firm. Not every situation in our life is clear, that we say it lovingly and people accept it and they never repeat it. It's life. People will test the same way our children are testing, but there is always even way for that when we understand ourselves and why we are setting that boundary in the first place. Not every situation has soft way. Sometimes no, it's a full sentence. And we have to understand that that doesn't mean we are rude to people or we are rejecting them. It means we are honoring our role as a grown woman. If somebody crossed our boundaries repeatedly, there is no other way than saying firmly no. We don't have to shout and scream, but we have to become a little bit firm, same way we become firm with our children. And maybe we will feel guilty after it, maybe no. It depends how many times you repeated setting boundaries and stepping up for yourself. From my own experience, the more I did it, the less I felt guilty. But we have to understand that the guilt, it's not a sign we are wrong, it's a sign we are growing. And guilt often shows up because we are doing something we we never did before. We never dared to do it. We are no longer little girls in the family. We are grown women, mothers, the one who are building the space, building the house. We are not betraying our family members when we set boundaries. We are just growing in our role. We are growing like a woman because we are not little girl anymore. And often the guilt of setting boundaries is happening because we are mixing the roles of our life. I have one of the previous podcast episodes where I talk about mixed roles. We have to redefine our role inside of our family. Being a daughter doesn't mean we own blindless obedience to our parents. Being a sister doesn't mean we have to shrink to keep our relationship intact. Being a family member doesn't mean staying silent to be accepted. You are not just part of your family, you are whole woman for yourself. And the boundaries you set, they don't separate you from your family. They return you to your family like a grown woman. When you set boundaries, you rise yourself up from that little girl who is terrified of how your family will react, and you become adult person in the room. So in the end, it's just up to us. Do we want to keep being accepted and loving by playing the same role, the role of the little girl, or do we want to be respected by growing and maturing into womanhood? That's it for this Sunday. I hope you found something valuable for yourself, and if you did, feel free to share this podcast episode with whoever could benefit from it. Feel free to text me either on Instagram or in description of this podcast episode. There is a section for the messages. I really love to talk, and I really love, as you can see, I love to connect with the people. I grow so much when I hear the wisdom from other people. We grow all collectively together when we become curious about each other, when we become open for dialogue and talk. So don't just hide behind this podcast episode, listening my voice week after week without ever interacting. Feel free to come, feel free to send a message, feel free to interact. We all can find more wisdom and grow together when we are open to each other to do it together. Until the next Sunday, I wish you a beautiful rest of the day. Bye.